Good Tuesday morning, and welcome to Ice Age TV, the Internal Combustion Engine Age YouTube channel that talks about all my cars and trucks and motorcycles, the camper, the dog. Oh my goodness gracious! Wow! Hey, the stickers are gone. The wife demanded the stickers be removed because she's traveling, and when she goes to work, she doesn't like the attention. So I followed the commands and I did that. Wow, what a beautiful Tuesday morning. You can taste that the fall season is right around the corner. And wow, what a day yesterday. I weed whacked for the first time in ages. I have weed whacked this property so long, and I kind of got lazy on my property, and I'm kind of getting remotivated again because now I have Brian to help take care of my business, which has made a huge difference in my time to dedicate my energy to other things. But as always, good Tuesday morning to all those that watch my channel. Hope you're having a blessed Tuesday morning, and I hope you have the weather we have, which is just an incredible day. It really is just beautiful. I'm sure anybody that was an outdoor person would love the air because it's so clean, it's so fresh, it's not humid, and it's a little cool. Not too bad. I got my Crocs on, which some just despise. My legs don't have poison ivy or anything else after I weed whacked for hours and hours in my shorts and my Crocs. And yeah, did that hurt many times? All this stuff flying off on me. And here's the Greenworks weed whackers that are electric, or battery, I guess you could say. And I'm just blown away on how the numbskull that I am didn't figure out I really didn't need to go out and buy another weed eater. So that was kind of a waste of money, but it was just about $200. But it's interesting, this is a 60 volt weed whacker, and it's more potent and powerful than the 80 volt, which is kind of strange. But this Greenworks that I have, the head on it was going bad, and I was having a hell of a time rewinding the line. So I got really aggravated, and so I just decided to buy a whole nother weed whacker. But to my dumbness, my ineptness, I forgot about how years ago I told my daughter to go do some weed whacking, and here's a brand new Greenworks weed whacker that for the most part only got used like once or twice. And I told my daughter to go weed whack, and she takes a Cobalt battery with all of her might, and she crams it into that unit, and it's now stuck and doesn't work. And so if you look over here, I was so mad trying to take this thing apart. I just obliterated the damn thing. But what I didn't think about was that how this had a good head on it. And it wasn't until yesterday it hit me like a brick in the head. And what I did is I took off the head off of that unit and put it on the other unit. So now that unit works. Oh, it's just incredible how we're backwards. Yes, we're backwards. As individuals, have you ever thought how backwards we are? We don't think things through. And when you backtrack, hey, Don, good morning, Don. He's getting buried with all the stuff on the bench. As usual, let's hit the dogs in the garage and figure out what we're going to talk about today on the morning conversation that we talk about and have. And I appreciate all those that participate. And Darren, the bison with the he went to LA Tint yesterday, and he got his vehicle tinted up and got that hood decal. And he now has like the stealth mode looking bison truck because it's such like the darked out bison. And he's really cool because he's a new subscriber, and he shared pictures with me, and he just stays in contact, and he loves my conversations, which is so cool. What are the odds of he and I meeting each other driving down the road over in Columbia, Maryland, where I'm rarely even in that area? And that's just so cool. So I hope you're enjoying your bison today. And so anyways, the conversations are always about what do we talk about? What's the agenda? And yesterday was the important conversations. And I forgot to mention, which just, numbnut me, is God, Jesus. Well, of course, I should have brought that up from the beginning, but I just get sidetracked in so many ideas and views and thoughts that, yes, of course, the most important thing in our life should be God and Jesus. That's the number one thing. That should be the all-time most important thing. So thank you so much for the select few out there that reached out, and for Dan, and well, I think Jeff Robinson, mentioned God. It's all about Jesus. Right. Exactly. So that's an important conversation that you should have with others in your life to share that. Now, for me, so I just mentioned the word backward. So I thought to myself, here we go. We'll take a word called backward. Let me get some water here. And my apologies for drinking a lot of water and stalling my talking, but yeah, I thought to myself, in today's society, I think we all could agree our society is going backwards. But then I think to myself, in the cars and trucks and motorcycles, what's the backwards? Well, if you drive your car backwards, I mean, that's a big challenge. A lot of people have a very challenging time backing up a vehicle. Whoever has tried to back up a trailer, have you ever seen a rookie person trying to back up a trailer? It's a classic. Especially you go to the boat ramp. If you ever go to a boat ramp in a busy time of year and just hang out at the boat ramp, you'll see one yahoo after another pulling up with their boat. They can drive it, but once you have to back it up and go backwards, it's a fiasco. I can still remember back in the 90s and even the 80s when I used to go boating. And back in the 90s, I got my own boat and had my own trailer. And I used to go down to a local park and I would put my boat in, but I would witness people show up that had no clue. Sometimes I'd literally get in their car, like, here, let me just do this for you. I mean, and some people are like, oh, thank you, I appreciate that, because it's like, dude, you're taking forever and ever to to move your vehicle. You know, if people are a boater and you've ever been to a boat ramp, you really understand this conversation. Could even be jet skis. Whole point is, driving a vehicle backwards is not easy. And a lot of people usually damage their cars or damage their trailers when they're backing them up, going backwards. And who hasn't seen the person lose control of their car, but all of a sudden going backwards down the road? It's usually not a good end result. So for us, I think about the cars, and I think about how Dodge is going to carry the Hellcat motor. One more production year. Wow. So Dodge hasn't said goodbye totally to the V8 platform. So the Dodge Durango gets special attention, and they're going to recognize it for 2025 on a Silver Bullet edition, triple nickel color, Dodge Durango, limited production, supposedly, and you're going to be able to get a Hellcat motor in that vehicle. It's taking the backward theme from the 1967 Plymouth Belvedere GTX. So in 1967, you could order what they called a silver bullet, special production, all-out race, street legal car with, I believe, a 480. Is it 487 or 489 stroker motor? I wasn't really my error, but I think it was a 487. I think, and that thing did a quarter mile in 10 seconds. So they're recognizing that very small production car back in 1967 as the theme, the color, even though the first 67 Plymouth Belvedere GTX was blue, actually. But then they transitioned to the silver, and they called it the Silver Bullet because it was so fast, which that was very impressive for 1967 of a factory-built car and go to the quarter mile 10 seconds. We just started seeing those factory numbers just here in modern times. So it's incredible on how Dodge is going to keep the V8 motor going, and you can get the RT package with a 5.7 liter Hemi. I don't like the looks of the Dodge Durango. It's so unfortunate that they didn't put that energy into the new Grand Cherokee. I would be all over that vehicle all day long. I just don't like the Dodge Durango. It does nothing for me. And I'm sorry for those people that own those. And if that's what that body flare makes you happy, then that's awesome. But it just doesn't grab me as a really, fancy, cool-looking car. I think my Ford Explorer, and I'm sure Bob Melbourne, and thanks for reaching out, Bob, that verified he was the guy that said, hey, the bird bath laying on the ground, I was wondering what that thing was, and you verified it. So it was Bob. So I remember that correctly. So good morning there, Bob, in Melbourne, Florida. But like his Explorer ST, I think those things look better than Dodge Durango. So anybody out there is a Dodge Durango fan, you have one more model year of getting the opportunity of a Hellcat motor or the 5.7 Hemi on the RT package. Sad part is the Durango is $113,000. I mean, beyond ridiculous. It is so bad, so backwards. I mean, just, oh my gosh, what is going on what is happening in our country with all this just stupid, crazy pricing. It's just incredible what's going on. And we all know that this DEI. So here's a really interesting story talking about the cars and trucks and motorcycles, and it relates to it because we know that Harley-Davidson just got called out big time for the DEI being exposed, that they were transitioning their company into the DEI. Diversity, equity, inclusion, if you don't know what that means. But it means basically what most people look at DEI is that people are put in positions and they have favoritism to them because they look a certain way. And that's basically what it is. I mean, that's kind of it's so many ways, it's backwards. It's as if we've brought racism back to our culture, but the racism isn't on, per se, the black community. The racism is now more per se on the other community. So but at the same time, it's not even about that. It's more about people feel that people are being put in positions and being accepted into schools and getting roles of leadership that really don't have the credentials for that. And that's what's irritating people, is we feel like we're lowering our standards for people just to be, everybody's a winner. Everybody gets a trophy. That's kind of the mentality that brings. And I think many people are concerned, rightfully so, that the leadership and the building quality of materials and motorcycles and cars and the software design, I mean, it's infinite on leadership, and people really have the skills that need to have those critical positions, but instead, these corporations are favoring the DEI. Everybody has to love everybody. Everybody has to be nice to everybody. And whether you really qualify or not, it doesn't matter. We're just going to put you out of position. And that's really what's irritating people. And what's very interesting about this is there's a guy named Robbie Starbuck. Robbie Starbuck is a huge DEI anti-activist. I'm thinking to myself, wow, we need this guy on the Ice Age. We need Robbie Starbuck to be running into every major car company and any manufacturing company that pertains to ICE. This guy needs to be on our team because this guy has riled up so many he's the social media platform guy. There was the wife heading to work, they heading to Tennessee, and she's going to have a great week as I stay up here and babysit the house, which is, it just seems like years ago we were always going to Tennessee and all these other things. That's all transition and change. So where is Mr. Kiefer? I just want to make sure Mr. Kiefer's not running out the gate, and he's not, but it's always wise to see what's going on. And he's way down there in the field. And so anyways, Robbie Starbuck is the guy that has the social media presence that gets enough people to rally behind him. And he's now made incredible success of getting companies to wean off of this DEI. To the point, Harley-Davidson just made a major announcement that they're going to pull back on all this diversity stuff, all this woke stuff, and they're just going to get away from it. They're going to stop promoting through their company's structure of what so many think is so wrong on how to run companies. And for the profit, the shareholders, there's a lot of people involved in these public companies that can raise their hand and force the hand for companies to go a different direction. As I talk about all the time, is that the Green Agenda have figured that out years ago, and they've manhandled these companies to go to this progressive Green Agenda ideology. But here's a guy named Robbie Starbuck that is actually accomplishing to shut this stuff down. And once again, we need the Robbie Starbuck of the world that can get the social media presence where more people start voicing their, I don't want this electric vehicle crap. We don't want it. We don't want it. Stop it. Stop building this piece of crap stuff. We don't want it. If we had more people out there screaming bloody murder and accusing these companies of going woke with the Green Agenda crap, it would maybe gain some traction. And I've talked about this for years on my channel. Where is the Ice Age activist funds? You have the Green Agenda funds that are worth billions of dollars. You don't have that in the Ice Age. All the Ice Age people are sucking their thumb and putting lollipops in their mouth and just hoping that the Ice Age just lasts another day. And oh, well, it is what it is. Yeah, right. So, but the reason I'm bringing up this guy, Robbie Starbuck, is because this goes back to the Moby Dick. The Moby Dick novel written in 1851 by, what was it, Melvin Hawthorne? Is that correct? Melvin Hawthorne? He was the author of the novel Moby Dick that was published in London in 1851. And actually the book is called The Whale. And then a month later it came to New York and it was called Moby Dick and the Whale. But what's incredible in that Moby Dick story is that, I'm trying to think, is it Melville? I just can't remember his last name, but other people will. But it was Nathaniel, who was the great writer, fictional writer of the 1800s. It was Nathaniel Scarlet Letters. Was that Nathaniel Hawthorne? Yeah, I think that's what it was. I'm getting their last names mixed up. But the whole point is this guy, Herman Melville. Yeah, Herman Melville dedicated that book to Nathaniel Hawthorne from the Scarlet Letter and another famous book from the 1800s. Because he was so intrigued. What's unfortunate is Nathaniel Hawthorne, he died when he was 60 years old. He didn't live very long. Born like 1804, or like in 1804. I think he died in like 1864. So, but you're probably like, well, but what's the big deal about the Moby Dick book? Well, it's all about Starbuck. Ahab, the captain's mate, was a guy named Starbuck. So here's a guy that I think is like, there's a start with, geez, I'm just getting all my words so I'm just getting all my words all goofed up here. So he was recognized in that novel for challenging Ahab wanting to chase Moby Dick, the great whale. He felt like it would be not good for the crew. And so if you read the book, you get what I'm talking about. But here's a guy that is being recognized in today's world named Robbie Starbuck. And in that guy's name, Starbucks, whether you realize it or not, Starbucks came from that guy, Starbuck. And you know what? I'm just here with so much information in my brain this morning that it's really aggravating because so anyways, I'm just here trying to put all this conversation together to the backward society that we live in more than ever, and how we're retreating backwards on so many things and going back to the things that that just I think most of us see aren't right. That it doesn't make any sense of where our society's going on all that. Yeah, Robbie Starbuck is the activist that's been very successful in pulling back the DEI in a lot of major companies and culture and corporations. And so I think it's ironic this guy's name, is that his real name? Did he take Starbuck from the novel Moby Dick? Because in that novel, Starbuck was the he was always challenging Ahab of what he wanted to do, and he felt would do more harm than good. And so, in so many ways, this guy Starbuck, he is doing the same thing, where he's challenging all these corporations of this DEI, and he feels so strongly about it that he's got enough social media presence and followers that the corporations are listening to him. And because I think so many would agree about where our culture is going is in so many ways going backwards. But going back to like the cars and trucks and motorcycles, it's incredible on how, in so many ways, we go backwards. If you look at the 2015 Camaro Z28 right here, this is such, in so many ways, looking back to the 60s of the Camaro. Recognizing the importance of how badass the Camaro was back in the 60s. You know, it's also, I'm forgetting to talk about, which was really on my main point of conversation this morning. I'm just now remembering it, talking about the Camaro Z28. And that is how it's hard to believe that in so many ways, the Mustang and I were born within the reasonable same amount of time. I was born in 1963, and going backwards, Ford just released the 60th anniversary Brittany Blue limited production of like 1,900 units to be 2025 models, even though Ford actually released the Mustang in 1964 and a half. But the DMV, back in that time, the DMV wouldn't recognize it as a 64 and a half vehicle, so they registered them as 65s. But technically, the Mustang was released in 64, but it was really a 65 model. And so Ford right now is going backwards and offering this nice retro recognition of 60 years of production. That's why it's hard to believe that the Mustang has been in production for 60 years. Basically, as long as I've been around. Wow, that is just incredible. And they're, in recognition of it, they're doing some little aesthetics and colors, and in instrumentation, they're going to give you a 1999 to 2001 special vehicle theme of the SVT Ford Mustang. If you know the SVT, that's a special vehicle team that was founded in 91 by Ford to start bringing these specialty performance vehicles. And so you're going to give you that 1999 to 2001 Ford Mustang SVT editions digital dash lookalike. And I even know this. I was reading this article. Even on my Mustangs right now, apparently on software updates, I have the availability to change out my theme in that digital dash into a retro, like 60s, late 60s Mustang dash. I didn't even know that. So I just learned that I heard about it, but I totally kind of forgot about it. But the point is, the car industry is taking things backwards to bring back, I guess, for us generation people and the younger ones, they're giving respect and they're giving a lot of highlight to the true beginnings of these pony cars. And in so many ways, I guess you could say they've gone backwards. And I think that really here in the most modern times, a good 10 years, it's incredible on how the muscle power has gone backwards. And what I mean by that is not that they've lost muscle power, but I always felt as a kid in the 70s that I missed out when I was in the 1980s, when I was a teenager and started driving cars and I could get a job. I always felt that I lost out in that 60s and early 70s all-out muscle power. You just heard how I said that the Silver Bullet, in recognition to the new Dodge Durango 2025 Hellcat edition, that's going back to 1967, a Plymouth Belvedere GTX that had a 487 stroker motor in it, and the damn thing would do a quarter mile in 10 seconds. So I thought I missed the era of all of that incredible power. But the auto industry went backwards in so many ways, and it brought back in 2014 the announcement of the Dodge Challenger Hellcat supercharged with 707 horsepower as a 2015 model year. So Dodge brought back the Dodge Challenger back like in 2009? I can't remember. Was it 2008, 9, or 10 when they brought back the Challenger? So in so many ways, this is very true to, I mean, it isn't exactly the same, but it's very true to the lines of the early 70s Dodge Challenger. And so Dodge went backwards and brought back this car. I mean, it would be so cool if the manufacturers would do more of that more often. Who wouldn't like to see the real deal 1976 280Z that was a more bulbous, had the long front end and had, maybe the fender flares. I mean, instead of Nissan making these more rounded looking egg-shaped cars, you'd only think that like Nissan would have made a more badass looking, like the Viper long front end. But I'm sure so many people on my channel that could reach out and say, only wish that the manufacturers would go backwards and give us back these body styles that were so cool back in the 60s and even the early 70s. Not so much mid to late 70s, 80s on the American side. They kind of started getting really weird because of all the environmental regulations and all the things that challenged the car manufacturers of meeting the gas guidelines and all this other baloney that was brought on by the California demands of their challenges with smog. And I'm sure many people know all about that. Now, for Harley-Davidson, I'm sure many people feel like they were going backwards in the wrong direction with all the DEI. And I think they woke up and realized that they are going to go backwards, because Harley Davidson back in the 70s, it wasn't the manufacturer that I would have picked to own a motorcycle. The 80s, very, very debatable. I wasn't at that level, but Harley Davidson has worked so hard in the most recent times to try to bring a bike that doesn't have a lot of flaws, which a lot of people know. The Harley Davidsons are notorious for being known for the engine problems or other issues with their motorcycles. But at the same time, they have worked very hard in some ways, and that's debatable. I mean, that is very, some will challenge those comments, but for me, for this CVO ST that I have right here, this is the baddest ass production motorcycle I've ever had from Harley. This is just the most baddest ass bike. And then for many that were talking here about DEI and trying to shame the Harley Davidson brand, for me, it's kind of like, oh, here we go. You get caught up in all this social media junk. And even Indian, believe it or not, even Indian was going that direction as well. So Indian pulled out of the DEI stuff. So a lot of companies are seeing that this American culture or public, they're just not excited about this whole diversity thing, and they don't feel it's right. And we can only thank the guy like Robbie Starbuck that has been so vocal that he's gotten companies to pull back because of the social media. Social media in that aspect has won. We all talk about how social media in so many ways sucks, but at the same time, in that aspect, the power of social media came to be better. But you think to yourself, where we are in today's country with the political situation that we're in, it's just incredible where the social media then just goes south. I mean, the social media thing, it just goes to the ground. Excuse me. I gotta get some water here. A lot of talk. You notice that? So excuse me for a second. And trying to get today's conversation with a backwards conversation, that's not easy. I mean, I'll just say straight up. To try to bring content that intrigues you to listen to me, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work of me trying to figure out. And I don't have any piece of paper in front of me. I don't have anything, so I'm not, we're just talking off the whim. I'm just talking off the tip of my tongue as I talk to you each morning. I don't have any documentation. I don't have anybody sitting in front of me. I don't have a teleprompter. I'm just off of ideas as I talk and just give you ideas to think about. And I think sometimes people say to themselves, that's a good point. I think sometimes people say that's just stupid as hell. I think some people would just turn me off. I get all that. But for me to try to bring content that intrigues you to look at things when I step back and try to look at things, I just think to myself, the backwards conversations, how do I take that in the car industry and the motorcycle industry, and how do I resonate that then into the state of times without it turning just to a total political conversation that turns off a lot of people. And then that happens. And so for me to try to keep the backwards conversations on like this Honda Goldwing, a really cool feature in this Honda Goldwing is it has a reverse, which Honda's had that for years. So and you can get this in the manual transmission or the automatic. This is the automatic transmission, but you know how cool that is when you want to back up. If you're any motorcycle enthusiast, if you pull up your bagger bike, and these bikes, these are 850-pound, 900-pound motorcycles. If you pull that motorcycle in and you're parked downhill, we've all seen it. You don't park downhill, you turn the bike around and you back it in backwards so you can launch forward without you being the dumbass where you're now trying to get your bike to go backwards up a hill. And for the average person, you're not going to be able to do it. You're going to have to have somebody get in front of the bike and start pushing on the Batwing to push you out. Who hasn't seen that? Whole point is, for Honda, what a great idea. Now, sure, in the trike bikes, you can get the reverse feature, but you have to have that. And I'm sure, for the most part, Harley could build it in that you can. I mean, there are people out there that have handicap challenges that I know for a fact have the reverse system put in their bike. So you can do that. But for the Harley Davidson, it just turns into more money, more weight, blah, blah, blah. But for Honda, it's a great feature. And as far as I know, I think on the two-wheel side, Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that Honda is the only production touring bike that has the reverse feature in it, non-trike, the 2 wheels. Somebody proved me wrong on that. So last night, I weed whacked like crazy, and then I jumped in the pool, and I'm in the pool, and I was in the pool. I was getting ready to go to the pool. All of a sudden, I see my daughter blasting around the field on the dirt bike. And at first, I thought she was on my 450R, which Mr. Sanchez is dying to see her ride. And I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, she shouldn't be doing that. Well, from a distance, I just couldn't tell. And so, no, she was on her KTM. If you watch my short video, you'll see my daughter riding the KTM yesterday. But it's classic because she came over to me, you probably even saw it in the video, and said, hey, I need gas. And I could see that the gas tank had gas right here. I could see the gas sloshing around right around here in this area. But for me, I've already been weed whacking all afternoon, and I'm just like, I'm done. And now, the way I do the gas around here, I've got a gas pump in the back of this Ford F-250 Kirby truck, which is really cool because I can go to the gas station and get gas. Now, I've got it in these tanks too, but the only downside of these tanks are they're bigger tanks, and it's a pain in the ass to the trailer. So I got a gas tank in the back of this truck that has gasoline. This other stuff's diesel. And so, but I gotta you gotta run a battery. You have to plug in your battery in the truck to run the pump, and it's just a project to do that. And my daughter can do it, but she needs help. So, I was like, no, you're fine. It was classic. You're fine. You got plenty of gas. Well, she actually rode that bike for a long time, but then she disappeared. And then for me, that's always concerning because my daughter rides all over the property, and if she was to fall down and injure herself, you really wouldn't know. I mean, so she could be way down there behind the house. She'd be way over there, other side of the field. But after a while, I started kind of, I was in the pool, so I'm like, wonder what happened to my kid. But then I thought, maybe I guess she just rode the bike into the garage, and I didn't see that when I was swimming around. Sure enough, a few minutes later, she's walking past the pool, pushing the bike up this hill. Yeah, pushing. She was over in the field, and she had to walk through the creek, and she had to push the bike all the way home. She ran out of gas. So she's looking at me, just shaking her head. Like, I told you, Dad, told you. So she had to walk it all the way back home. That ain't easy, man. Until you push a dirt bike, you don't get it. So then it's classic. She gets on the Honda Grom. And then she rides the Honda Grom. She just loves this thing. She rides around this thing, just rides yesterday evening, just having a blast. I rode it yesterday morning, having a blast on it. That thing is so much fun. The debate is, do I trade the Monkey for one of these? That deal is, I can do that if I want to. I don't know. It's never ending going backwards. I'm going backwards. The Honda Monkey is more expensive. The Honda Monkey is more the retro thing. But the new updated Grom, to me, I like the looks of it. I don't like the previous look of the Grom. I just think it looks gaudy. I think this has so much more flair. So much cooler. So, back to the backward conversations. Yeah, is our country going backwards? It sure seems like it, doesn't it? I mean, think it through. The crime, I mean, people will say that I'm wrong about the crime, but once again, you've heard my channel a zillion times on how they change the way they write the laws for crime. And so it doesn't come up and isn't reported the same, so the crime looks down. But it seems like we're going backwards in society because of all the challenges that our country is facing, but it seems that so many don't think that that's really the way, the case it is. That we've gone backwards in our immigration policies that have been a never-ending battle in this country, but in the last 4 years of this city administration, the immigration crisis, excuse me, it's gone bad. I've just got a bad cough this morning. Maybe it's the cold weather. I probably have a cold. You know why? I literally worked my ass off yesterday. Then I jumped in my pool, and it's just cold. I had to jump in the shower and take a really nice, hot, long shower because I was just freezing, But I wanted to get all that stuff off my body and the chlorine, and I think it worked. So sorry for the cough and everybody this morning. So anyways, the legal immigration, it's gone backwards, meaning that the former sitting president wanted to try to get a wall built. He wanted to try to get stricter guidelines. He imposed into Mexico and other countries, you're not going to get all this free money you get from us if you don't start getting stricter on this border crossing. But then when he's removed from office, that all goes backwards. The minute that Joe Biden, Barack Obama get in power, they just tear up all those documentations, all those enforcements, and they change everything overnight. And that's the thing, that this administration went in and went backwards. So they went back to like the Barack Obama years of the way they wanted to run this country. And so they ripped up everything that the previous administration or Donald Trump had created. And so, once again, it just seems like we're living in a day and age where we're going backwards. People know from the 80s of high inflation made it very challenging for you to buy houses and do things. But we've gone backwards with this inflation thing. What makes no sense to me, which I'm sure so many would agree with me, they've been raising inflation here for the last 3+ years, but it hasn't changed the pricing. Has anybody actually seen the houses that are now half the price because of higher interest rates? Has anybody seen cars half the price now because of higher interest rates? Has anybody seen the cost of food half of what it used to be? I mean, you can go through the list, so it makes no sense. It's backwards thinking on the fact that it makes no sense that raising the interest rates and making it very expensive to borrow money, that it is not offset how everything's gone up in price. But that was the whole mentality, was that Jerome Powell told everybody with raising interest rates, it'll simmer down, everything being so expensive, and everything will get cheaper. But it hasn't really happened. So it's just the smoke and mirrors, man. It is so backwards. It is so bad that all these political figures and power, all they do is backtrack on what they say. They promise everybody everything, but in the end, you get nothing. There's another stories. That's it. I'm done talking. I get too busy today. And it's, once again, appreciate everybody watching my channel. I try to bring information, ideas, views, thoughts, and without making you mad. And I appreciate everybody enjoying my channel and watching it and supporting it, which is really fabulous. Thank you so much. And what's the next adventure? I don't know. It could be another Grom. Part of me is like, just buy another Grom and don't get rid of the monkey. I don't know. I just am, like I need another damn motorcycle, right? I get it. And for Metallica out there, he's funny. It was a total misunderstanding communication for us between this Mustang. And I by no means was meaning to come across as being critical. And I don't really want to do that on my channel. Anybody as a subscriber that reaches out to me, I'm always going to try to take the position that we're trying to communicate through reading words, and it's not easy, of what you're saying versus what I'm saying, and clarifying things. And so for Metallica, he actually did, in my eyes, me a favor by alerting me to the Mustangs having recalls. So it wasn't a remark to you by any means that I was being critical of you. I was actually praising you for hopefully saving me from having another totaled Mustang, on which that could happen with a rear knuckle tied into your suspension and braking. If it breaks, it would not be a pretty picture for you trying to control that car if you're doing 50, 60, 70 miles an hour down the road. So thank you, Metallica. I appreciate your presence. And Corporal Busa, I mean, there's so many subscribers, Dan, that just reach out on a consistent basis. Charles, the Hood, he's funny. His kid apparently wears Crocs all the time and wears shorts and does crazy things. And then Green Rush is like, you have gone green, man. You are green. So just these little comments are really entertaining to me when I watch my channel and see people watch it and interact. And that's just really cool, because it feels like we're all family. Because I feel like so many that watch my channel, we're all on the same page. This country's going backwards. It's not going forward. So to listen to this Kamala Harris run her mouth on how the Build Back Better never ever happened, how the future of the government continuing just to hand out wads of money to try to fix the problems, it won't make things better. It's going to make things worse. So we're going backwards. Remember, we weren't in wars like we are today. We're going backwards. We weren't in war with Russia. We weren't in war with the Palestinians per se. So it's incredible on how under this whole regime, under Barack Obama, with Joe Biden as now the departing Muppet that's going to be replaced by Kamala Harris, speculation is they'll put Kamala Harris in as president, And then Joe Biden can be pardoned for all the bad things he's done during his presidency and all the other corruption that he does. That's the speculation now that's going on. Doesn't play out. But the whole point is we've gone backwards. Racism. Does anybody really, really remember that you go 4 years ago, 2020, the George Floyd fiasco had this country at an all-time highest racism, division, BLM, Antifa like never ever seen. But yet it seems like nothing like that goes on anymore. You're telling me that a police officer didn't kill a person and this is really bad? It's going on. The media won't cover it. They won't tell you that yet another police officer made a big mistake of killing somebody, looks like George Floyd, but they don't publicize it. They don't want to, under this Barack Obama's legacy, to get the country riled up and for people to think that under the city administration that people really are mad and pissed off and it isn't what it really is, and the divisions are still there and the challenges are still there. But they're not going to show it. They're not going to do it because it would get them looking like Donald Trump was in 2020 of being a president that just creates madness and hell in our country. So it's not going to happen. Even though in Chicago, if you watch the news isn't going to show it. It's not going to show it. You got to have to go to X or social media where somebody like me will walk around, like Charlie Kirk that went to that DNC, and there's a whole barricade of Jersey barriers with high metal fencing, like a concentration camp, all around the DNC headquarters. Was that around the Republican, the RNC? I had no idea. I mean, somebody reached out and told me, did the RNC have a barricade of a wall around the headquarters where they had the convention? And did they have just thousands and thousands of police officers in that surrounding area to guard that whole building? Well, that's what's going on right now in the DNC. Why is that? I thought that the Democratic National Party was the party of love, and this country's in the most beautiful shape it's ever been, and it's all going to even be more beautiful under Kamala Harris. Wow. It's all going backwards, everybody. I sure hope people realize in November, I think more than ever, I would have laughed at you years ago, that this election's going to make a big difference for us going backwards or for us going forward. And I think most here would totally agree with me that should the Barack Obama's legacy continue on, this country's going to go backwards like you've never ever seen it. So that's it. I'm done. I'll shut up. And I hope everybody has a blessed day. God bless.